Stygia is the fifth layer of the 9 hells of Beator. Ruled by the archdevil Levistus, the frozen wastes, much like its prince, occupy a peculiar place in hell's hierarchy without a clear purpose. Instead, the vast Great Sea serves as a testing ground, a harsh environment of intense cold and ongoing conflict that challenges the strength and resilience of infernal soldiers against fearless, monstrous beings. Stygia is named after the River Styx, which traverses its entire extent. It can best be described as a frozen ocean, a vast expanse of dark, turbulent seas with massive, crushing ice floes and icebergs. It is a realm where the powers of ice and cold are amplified, while those of fire and heat are diminished, even for magical items and spells. Light magic also takes on a soft gray glow. A thick sheet of ice covers the layer, though in many places it gives way to open water. Even in Stygia, the ice slowly melts, feeding the dark river that the layer is known for. It is peculiar to imagine a river running through an ocean, yet the Styx winds its way through the Stygian seas, maintaining its own form along the way. It meanders across the fifth layer like a winding serpent, moving swiftly enough to avoid freezing, although its flow remains sluggish, and the layer's cold chills its fetid waters. Where the river meets the ocean, the oily putrescent waters of the Styx remain distinctly separate from the surrounding sea. Aside from the bitter cold in the River Styx, Stygia is marked by the treacherous, bloody machinations of its master, Levistus. Stygia is a harsh realm, a place that strips away love and compassion, consumes sorrow, and harbors a pervasive sense of hunger beneath its biting winds. Under the attentive influence of Levistus, the unyielding tempest can take on a life of its own, becoming a crushing and caressing force that both cajoles and commands. As his will resonates, the ice quakes and cracks, sending geysers of water bursting forth from beneath. Civilization in Stygia is concentrated on the ice flows, particularly those large enough to support cities and castles. Communities tend to form near the banks of the Styx, as the river doesn't freeze over, providing relatively easy transportation despite its toxicity. Several areas in Stygia are connected by black wrought iron bridges that arch high into the sky before descending after great distances. These bridges are covered in frozen algae and slime and tremble ominously when walked upon. They are so slippery that careless crossing can result in falling into the ocean or onto the ice. Along the Styx's tainted banks stand fortress checkpoints equipped with watchtowers and processing centers. Visitors are required to navigate the long, twisting halls of gloomy, unwelcoming sights, which are as much mazes of corridors as they are of regulations. After waiting in these dark, pungent places, visitors are interrogated about their intent and possessions, strip-searched, and thoroughly humiliated before being required to pay an entrance fee in coinage, magic items, or other valuables. A great fleet of icebreaker ships is maintained in Stygia to keep its icy channels clear of debris, and those using the cleared routes are heavily taxed. Attempting to navigate the layer without an icebreaker often results in ships becoming trapped, crushed, or capsized by the ice, making the crew easy targets for scavengers and opportunists. However, piracy is not tolerated under Levistus' rule, and hunter ships manned by his most cunning servants patrol the waters, sometimes posing as distressed vessels to ambush would-be raiders. Many ships navigate even the remotest seas of Stygia under the direction of Levistus' devils and other agents. Stygia's landscape features many rises and falls, including endless, tumbled mountains of ice and frozen rock. There are also long, twisting rocky canyons, hanging valleys, and even a few volcanic rifts in the mountains known as steam trenches. The treacherous alpine and glacial ice makes scaling Stygia difficult without the magical aid of something like spider climb, and avalanches are common. Despite its rugged terrain, it is abundant in natural resources. The mountain quarries yield much of the structural stone used throughout the hells, including granite, basalt, marble, and chalk, as well as rubies, beryls, and turquoise from seams and veins. Additionally, many igneous metallic ores can be found in the steam trenches high in the outlands. Closer to the center of Stygia, the encircling mountains give way to a vast salt swamp that covers much of the layer. Despite being called a swamp, the area remains frozen, though it has an intriguing origin. For eons, tiny Arctic plants and mosses have taken root in Stygia's thick ice, sending tendrils deep inside to gather scarce nutrients. The millennia of decay of these plants has created cold swamps atop the pack ice. The thickest swamps are the most hospitable areas, attracting a wide variety of creatures. However, these regions are also the warmest in Stygia, significantly increasing the risk of falling through the thin ice. The frozen white landscape of Stygia contrasts with the black waters of its dark seas and the Styx. While the Styx stays fluid by flowing fast enough to avoid completely freezing, it still has icebergs choking its flow. The exact reason why the swamp does not freeze as the river does remains unclear. Interestingly, the spell Transmute Water to Dust works on the swamp waters of the upper hell of Minneros, but not on the Styx, or the salty waters of Stygia's swamps and ocean. The Styx's waters descend from the mountains and expand into the swamp, while opals and topaz can be dredged up from the river's bottom. The Styx, also called the River of Blood, is a cross-planar river that connects the upper layers of the lower planes. Those who touch or drink from the Styx risk losing their past memories, either temporarily or permanently. The Styx winds through the upper layers of the 7 lower planes. Its headwaters are located in Pandesmos, the uppermost layer of Pandemonium, along with several of the river's tributaries. In this plane, the river's effects are less potent, so merely touching the water or the spray from the intense winds can cause no harm. While just as chaotic and unpredictable as in other planes, the branches of the Styx and Pandemonium are typically shallower. In the Abyss, the Styx winds around the plane of infinite portals, the first layer. Some channels pour into pits, carrying its waters to several deeper layers, while foul water wells up from the other pits to rejoin the Styx. A relatively safe dock is located in the Pazunian town of Broken Reach. The river also passes irregularly through the diseased, bloody swamps of the Blood Shallows, forming several disputed islands. In the layer of Thanatos, the river feeds a moat around Orcus's palace of Naratir. In the layer of Shedda Claw, the Styx forms the border between the regions controlled by Zuktmoy and Jubilex. The layer of Durau is the main departure point for demons going to fight in the Blood War. From Pazunia, a branch of the river leads to Shendelavri and flows into Garanthus through a massive waterfall. In Orthris and Carceri, the river mingles with canals and bogs, soaking the ground with its magic. Unlike other planes, Morenoloths ask for a much lower price to ferry passengers into Carceri, but charge an exorbitant fee to ferry a passenger out of the prison layer. In the Oinos layer of Hades, the banks of the Styx are a raging battleground of the Blood War. As it crosses into the wasteland, the river comes within sight of Kin Oin. The residence of Igwil is located next to the river. The Styx is the main river of the Halas layer of Gehenna, rushing through canyons and gorges at shocking speed and over enormous waterfalls, making it incredibly dangerous to sail there. In Ovalis, the top layer of Acheron, the Styx emerges from a crater on one cube, runs for miles, drains down into another crater, and reappears on a different cube entirely. Sometimes it changes course and drowns entire cities, taking with it memories and lives. In other places, the river flows through one cube space, only to plummet into another in massive and deadly waterfalls. Close to its entry point in Avalos, the Styx completely engulfs the cube Brazmes in a waterfall, causing its material to rust and absorb some of its memory-stealing properties. The Doomguard maintain a mining facility deep within the cube, where they use the metal to forge consumptive burst weapons infused with negative energy. One particular cube in Avalos, Wretchedmurk, allows for unusual predictability in the river's course. The Styx runs uniformly on all sides of Wretchedmurk, and flows from each side into a specific lower plane. Each face of the cube takes on the characteristics of the destination plane, so a passenger always knows where they will end up when embarking from any of the cube's faces. The ice of Ocanthus and Acheron is the final destination of the Styx. It is believed that all the lost memories claimed by the river remain there, trapped in the ice, while some theorize that the icy layer is actually the source of the river. Vortices throughout the river link it to the elemental plane of water. The Styx doesn't extend to the astral plane, but portals also exist along its banks. In Beator, streams of blood from the unending battles swell the Styx in the first layer of Avernus. Countless tributaries and branches trickle through all the lower layers as well, but the main course of the Styx connects to the 5th level of Stygia, where it cuts a channel through the Great Frozen Sea. In Stygia, the river Styx is choked with icebergs and filled with Sephwagan and fiendish sharks that attack the boats. A little-known offshoot runs through the trenches of the 9th layer, Nessus, into a pool known as the Forgotten Lake. However, the path to this offshoot is unknown, and some believe it doesn't exist at all. The river is a deep, swift torrent that cannot be forded. The water at the surface moves slowly and sluggishly, hiding a dangerous subsurface current that can quickly pull boats and swimmers to the bottom. The water of the Styx has a foreboding dark color, resembling dark wine, and it constantly exudes a putrid odor. It's oily, greasy, and foul, covered in bubbles and debris. Its banks are lined with the rotting remnants of battles fought along its course. Despite its uninviting appearance, the water tempts thirsty travelers in the lower plains. However, just a touch or taste of the water is enough to cause complete amnesia and an effect similar to a feeble mind spell on a drinker who cannot resist it. Even those who can withstand it lose all short-term memory of the previous 8 hours. A spellcaster might retain their prepared spells, but forget that they have them. Blessings from Sekolah are known to render Sahuagin temporarily immune to the harmful effects of the Styx. The only fiends known to be completely immune are Amnesus, Hydraloths, Morenoloths, and Wastroliths. The waters of the Styx also have the power to temporarily erase the content from the pages of the Book of Exalted Deeds, rendering its magic inert for up to a century. Lost memories can be restored by powerful spells such as Heal, Miracle, and Wish. The only known natural remedy for restoring permanently lost memories is a rare blossom known as Desert's Night, which grows in Set's realm of Ankhwaghat in Stygia. The Styx serves as a crucial route in the Blood War, with its banks being potential battlegrounds in any plane they touch. Demons often enter Avernus by navigating the Styx from the Abyss. Wretchedmerk is also a potential invasion site due to the proximity of connections to both planes, despite being on opposite faces of the massive cube. However, both sides generally utilize the cube for drills and troop recruitment. The origins of the Styx are a mystery. It is rumored that its true source lies at Winter's Hall, where a mix of melting snow, divine poison, and the blood of a tortured deity flows into pandemonium and becomes progressively infused with the plane's evil. The silt at the bottom of the Styx is rumored to contain the memories of all the souls who have lost their identities there. The Shadar Kai are always interested in obtaining this material from adventurers, who sometimes seek to collect vials of the sediment to offer to the Raven Queen in exchange for a boon or divine favor. The shallow headwaters of the Styx are inhabited by large versions of freshwater wildlife, such as quippers, eels, lampreys, snails, and crustaceans. The river is also home to Styx Dragons, who tend to build their lairs along its banks, and Stygian Linnorms. Styx Dragons, also known as dark worms or shadow drakes, inhabit the corrupted depths of the River Styx. The bodies of Styx Dragons are long and serpentine. Their slimy scales vary in color from dark brown to rusty red, and their eyes emit a sickly yellow glow. They are fully adapted to underwater life. Though they can live indefinitely on dry land, they cannot fly, and their short-webbed limbs are ineffective for moving on the ground. However, they excel at swimming, underwater combat, and hunting. Styx Dragons are completely immune to the harmful effects of the River Styx. Their diet consists mostly of fiends and creatures they can catch, but they tend to prefer carrion. Due to their atrophied limbs, Styx Dragons cannot effectively attack with their claws. Instead, they use their long, bifurcated tails as devastating cutting and constricting weapons. Both their tails and bites infect their targets with a disease known as Stygian wasting, causing flesh to rot and air to fall out over several days. They possess 2 breath weapons, a cone of acid with a slow, lingering effect, and a cone of gas that drains the intelligence of any creature that it hits. They can also naturally produce effects similar to the Control Water, Curse Water, Deeper Darkness, Feeble Mind, Fog Cloud, Hold Monster, Horrid Wilting, Mind Fog, and Stinking Cloud spells. Styx Dragons can also summon giant fiendish water creatures such as crocodiles, giant octopuses, sharks, squids, togenitas, and even water elementals. They typically make their lairs on the muddy banks of the Styx, or are forcefully brought into the prime material, any area with foul water. They can be found alone or in families as they raise their young, with clutches of young Styx Dragons being common. They inhabit the first layer of all the lower planes, but are rarely found on Coral. They are favored by the deities Talona and Seth. Stygian Linnorms are a rare and dangerous species of Linnorm native to the River Styx. They are massive, serpentine dragons without wings or hind legs, featuring a pair of horns curling off their crocodilian heads. Their scales come in various shades of gray. The claws on their front legs, the only limbs they have, are webbed. They are avaricious, cruel, and arrogant. They possess keen eyesight, along with dark vision and blind sight. They are immune to magic that induces sleep or paralysis, damage from acid, and anything affecting the mind. Naturally, they are immune to the effects of the River Styx. They are also venomous, and their breath weapon is a terrifying cone of acid and Styx water that both damages and potentially feeble-minds their enemies. They have several spell-like abilities, including Fly, Control Water, Dimension Door, Quicken Enervation, Feeble Mind, and Destruction. They prefer to initiate combat by using Enervation on the most obviously dangerous enemy. This is followed by their breath weapon if facing a group, or Destruction if they target a single foe. They then engage in melee, reserving their spell-like abilities for enemies mobile enough to stay out of reach. They only fight to the death when protecting their treasure. Otherwise, they flee using Dimension Door if they're injured. Stygian Linnorms are native to and almost never found outside the River Styx. They are generally solitary, although mated pairs and family groups are not unheard of. They are known to ally with other powerful entities as guardians, although they remain nearly impossible to control. Those living away from the Styx enjoy convincing lesser species, like ogres and trolls, that they are deities deserving tribute. Igwilv is known to keep a pair of enthralled Stygian Linnorms as guardians of her manor in Hades. Travelers are advised to use the boatman Charon or his servants, the Morenoloths, to navigate the river. If called via spells, a Morenoloth typically answers within seconds. They charge a fee in advance per passenger and never carry cargo. Despite being the most reliable navigators of the river, they are known to sometimes lead their passengers into traps set by a third party. It is advisable to increase the payment to a Morenoloth to avoid such an inconvenience. Patezu often employ Ossiluths as their boatmen. In addition to these fiends, some petitioners, and more rarely mortals, work as ferrymen and ferrywomen. These ferrymen are adept at navigating the chaotic currents and eddies of the Styx, and are willing to take travelers between the planes for a price. When traversed by competent navigators, any point along the banks of the Styx can be reached within one total day. If non-natives attempt to circumvent the river by flying or walking over it, there is a good chance of attracting Hydrolos or Amnesus. The Styx is frequently visited by Gorelick, who periodically drinks its waters to forget his past defeat at the hands of Yeenoghu. Stygia is sometimes referred to as both the source and the culmination of the River Styx. On any given plane, the river's waters flow steadily in consistent directions without overflowing or drying up, but its course varies. Originating from the mountains of the frozen wastes, the river slows as it reaches the Stygian swamp and sea. From there, the Morenoloths navigate their skiffs through the swamp and move on to the other plains without needing to climb back through the mountains. Regardless of whether it's the beginning or the end, Stygia's connection to the Styx is distinct. The river carves a channel into Stygia, a feature typically found only on the top layers of the lower plains. It flows through Stygia in both directions, serving as both an entrance and an exit. As the Styx moves through Stygia, already tainted with debris and flotsam, it becomes increasingly polluted as it travels through the lower plains, collecting more detritus, and then returns to Stygia to deposit this new filth on the layer's icebergs. Some sources claim that the River Styx is diluted in Stygia, lessening its memory-erasing effect, while others state the opposite, suggesting that the entire layer's water supply is toxic. In truth, the waters of the Styx are particularly potent and concentrated in Stygia. The sun doesn't shine on the layer, leaving only a gloomy sky filled with smoky black clouds and a landscape of perpetual twilight dimmed by long shadows cast by massive icebergs. Instead, the layer is lit by constant flashes of lightning, although visibility is limited. Electrical storms are so frequent that the lightning never ceases, and thunder follows every strike, creating a continuous, distant roar echoing across the icy plains. The sharp stench of frozen-over waste occasionally fills the air, and shooting stars made of smoking ice streak across the sky from the peaks, plunging deep into the swamps. Stygia is extremely cold. Prolonged exposure to its barren environment of constant sleet and snow is hazardous, and entering the frigid water is even worse. The cold in Stygia has supernatural danger as well. For instance, there are cold fires, strange white flames that are intensely freezing to the touch. These flames burn on rocky peaks where lightning strikes, although it's unclear what fuels them as they blaze on bare rock and leave no trace on it or the ice. Stygia is also the origin place of Stygian ice, extraplanar form of ice infused with the plane's soulless evil and the waters of the Styx. The black substance is covered with a thin layer of pale blue mist. It is colder than normal ice and releases nauseating vapors when melted. What makes Stygian ice particularly lethal is not its physical impact, but its quicker effect on the mind. Contact with it results in magical, freezing cold, slowly freezing the victim's memories. Further contact can lead to physical debilitation, ending with the victim becoming a wraith in under a minute. There are disadvantages of using Stygian ice as a weapon. It's only slightly harder than regular ice, and is susceptible to destruction by fire, especially magical flames. Unless wielded with great skill by someone immune to the cold, the weapon will torment its user as much as their opponent. Like all 9 hells of Baator, no planar portals can connect directly to Stygia. One must generally first go through Phlegethos, the layer above it, and find a portal. And likewise, another portal is needed to get to Malbolgi below. Portals exist from Abermach, the only city in Phlegethos, to Tontlin and Stygia, as well as from the City of Ice to at least one of the many copper fortresses in Malbolgi from the Moloch regime. Balls of cold fire dance around the boundary regions to the hells above, and if one travels deep enough down, it's possible to enter the neither here nor there realm between Stygia and Malbolgi where the cold diminishes. It is also possible to reach Tantlin from the divine realm of Ankhwaghat, which is located in Stygia. It is known that when locations in the material plane become as frigid as Stygia, such as Icewind Dale under Arl's everlasting rime, the bitter cold enables Levistus to open portals between these places and Baator. Ankhwaghat is the divine realm of Set, the Pharaonic and Muhorandi god of evil. Set maintains multiple versions of his divine realm. The main one is in Stygia, but there's also a smaller Ankhwaghat Prime or Little Ankhwaghat in Avernus, along with some other similar realms. It is a desert world of poisoned sands, a place where the scorpion's sting and the viper's bite are prevalent. While its various incarnations have differences, the unwavering element between all of them is their submission to the almighty power of Set. The Ankhwaghat Desert is known for its sighing sands and winds, harsh hot breezes, and dry desert air. The environment creates a striking contrast with its surroundings in Stygia, where the frigid cold clashes with the sudden heat as one enters the realm. It is a burning desert with flowing rivers situated amidst a plain of ice and snow. The land, scoured of fertile soil by millennia of glaciation, can still be irrigated, albeit with some difficulty due to its extreme dryness. The unique climate of Ankhwaghat is further complicated by its unusual cycle of day and night, or rather the lack thereof. While there are specific times of day, such as noon, the sky, like the rest of Stygia, remains in a state of perpetual twilight. This realm of eternal dusk features a sky that is always sooty black, streaked with bloody reds and oranges that change position and visibility throughout the day, brightest at noon and nearly invisible at night. The infertile earth of the divine realm is almost entirely covered by a vast complex of palaces and monuments. Beneath and within these structures lies a network of catacombs and passageways filled with statues and sarcophagi, all adorned with emblems and hieroglyphics that celebrate the ultimate power of death over life and Set's supremacy over all other gods. Ankhwaghat features both civilized and wild areas, with the latter being particularly dangerous for trespassers due to the presence of deadly wildlife and evil creatures of the desert. This realm is home to animals like crocodiles, hyenas, scorpions, and various serpents, all possessing heightened intelligence and the ability to innately sense goodness in others. These creatures will attack any good-aligned intruder they detect and alert others of their kind unless the trespasser is accompanied by a priest or proxy of Set. The realm is also inhabited by monstrous scorpions, chaos beasts, howlers, Yeth Hounds, Nishruu, and fire snakes. The chaos beast is a horrifying, ever-changing entity from the plains. Its deadly touch can turn a victim into a shapeless mass, eventually transforming them into a chaos beast themselves. It has no fixed, original, or true form. It is entirely mutable, constantly melting and reshaping into new and terrifying body types. Its appearance is unpredictable. It may go through several transformations before settling on one temporarily. The Chaos Beast can take on any form or something entirely different. While its height, length, and breadth may vary, they usually have the height and weight of a typical humanoid. However, some of them grow much larger and more powerful. Despite having many mouths, they are not known to speak. Constantly changing, A chaos beast's breeding habits and behaviors are impossible to predict. Those from Limbo consume the chaos stuff of that plane, while one has been known to eat the bones of its prey. They wander aimlessly and do not defend any territory, avoiding the stabilized, ordered parts of Limbo and preferring the more chaotic regions. They are always encountered alone. When a chaos beast touches the bare flesh of a living creature, it causes a horrific transformation. Those who cannot resist through physical strength suffer from corporeal instability, turning their bodies soft and spongy, losing all sense of form, and melting into an amorphous mass. This transformation is extremely debilitating. Feet and legs become misshapen and weak, slowing their movement. Hands lose the ability to grip. Worn items become useless and restrictive as the body bulges, hindering their agility. The distorted nerves cause excruciating pain, preventing the victim from acting sensibly. Unable to recognize allies and enemies, they attack blindly and clumsily and cannot use magic. The shock and trauma also deteriorate their sanity until they manage to regain control over their body again. With effort and confidence, a victim can halt and manage the transformation, reassuming their original form for about a minute. It takes constant effort to keep their body from becoming unstable again. Another person can apply the needed willpower to give the victim some time to rest. This corporeal instability is neither a curse nor a disease, making it difficult to remove. Spells like Compulsive Order, Shape Change, and Stone Skin are known to fix their form temporarily. However, spells like Heal, Greater Restoration, Stabilize, and even Limited Wish are required to lift the instability and restore the body, although not necessarily the victim's sanity. Those who are unable to regain control will become mindless and formless monstrosities, sometimes reduced to shapeless goo. Those who manage to regain some control but remain afflicted will eventually be consumed by madness and body horror, ultimately becoming chaos beasts themselves. Constantly changing their forms, no magic crafted by mortals can trap a chaos beast into a single shape or force it into another. Polymorph spells or even petrification effects might temporarily alter a chaos beast's shape, but within seconds or minutes, it can revert to its original form or assume a new one effortlessly. It is resistant to spells in general, and its inconsistent anatomy makes it difficult to inflict serious injuries. A chaos beast attacks using whatever body part it has at the moment, such as claws, pincers, tentacles, fangs, or spines. Despite its disturbing and adaptable nature, it is not physically very dangerous. It is relatively weak and can only fight with two appendages at a time due to its constant changes, which result in a lack of coordination, or perhaps it just isn't intelligent enough to use its new forms effectively. Its blows are weak, regardless of the size or shape of the attacking appendage. However, their strikes have a chaotic unpredictability. These creatures originate from the plane of Limbo. Material plane dwellers unfamiliar with Limbo often mistakenly believe them to be a type of chaos elemental. They can also be found along the River Styx, the supreme throne of Cyric, and the wilderness of Set's realm of Ankhwaghat. Once slain or severed from the body, the flesh of the chaos beast becomes a protoplasm-like substance, losing all of its potency within moments. While wizards have researched ways to use it as a powerful component in shape-changing potions, no known use has yet been recorded. They are favored by the elven god Erevan Ilesere, also known as the ever-shifting shape-changer, and some are known to serve him. A massive chaos beast once attacked the halfling settlement of Barnstable in Limbo. Chaos beasts and cloakers are known to emerge from the caverns of Terrandoom beneath the southeastern Far Forage in the Savage Frontier as of 1372. A chaos beast was kept as a servant by the lizard folk band led by Lizard King Kagasta around 1373 at the ruined temple of the World Serpent. This chaos beast made its lair in the old library and was allowed to hunt humanoids and animals in the area, although how they communicated with the entity is unknown. Chaos beasts might also be encountered in the River Greymurk in the maze level under mountain. Yeth Hounds, also known simply as Yeth, are fearsome outsiders that hunt under the cover of night. They are intelligent yet bestial creatures whose howls induce unbearable fright in those who hear them. They resemble large greyhounds, reaching about the shoulder height of a humanoid and weighing about twice as much. Their short fur is a dull, non-reflective night black, often blending into darkness and leaving only the cherry-red glow of their eyes and the smell of chilled smoke to indicate their presence. They possess an oddly human-like visage, with protruding noses instead of muzzles, and more flexible necks than those of canines. Their ears are short and pointed, curving upwards and away from the rest of the head, in a way that resembles horns. They are wicked hunters and fundamentally obedient creatures, following the toughest member of their pack with complete deference and consciously seeking evil masters to serve. Aside from that, they have no loyalty to each other and will not assist unless instructed otherwise by a master. The only prize they seek from their prey are their terrified screams as they hunt them down and tear them limb from limb, and any treasures found within a Yeth Hound are purely incidental. Threats and intimidation hold no power over them, as they have only one crippling fear: sunlight. They never venture into sunlight, even during a hunt or when their lives are at risk. Due to this aversion, they ensure they return to their dens before dawn and remain there, pacing or sleeping until night falls again. Not even their master's commands can persuade them to stay outside during the day. The defining feature of Yeth Hounds is their dreadful baying, which fills those nearby with sheer panic. Their ghastly howls induce such terror that foes flee in the most direct path away, regardless of obstacles or hazards. While their claws are not strong enough to cause serious damage, their sharp fangs can mentally assault foes in an already terrified state. Evil beings are typically immune to their howling, but mortals can suffer permanent trauma from supernaturally induced fear. Yeth Hounds can fly magically, silently, and tirelessly gliding above the ground to pursue their prey. Their excellent auditory and olfactory senses, combined with their frightening speed, make them extremely dangerous hunters. Only enchanted and silver weapons can truly harm a Yeth Hound, as they partially pass through ordinary weapons as if they were mist. Their fear of sunlight stems from its detrimental effect on them. Exposure to daylight can banish a Yeth Hound to the ethereal plane, while torches and light magic cannot harm them. Sunlight traps them in the deep ethereal as long as it shines on the spot they disappeared from. Once the sun sets, the Yeth Hound can enter the border ethereal, where it can see and be seen by beings on the material plane, but cannot interact with them. A Yeth can return to the material plane only by finding a packmate or their master, and death in the ethereal plane is permanent for them. They employ pack tactics similar to those of dogs, but with far greater intelligence. After hunting down their weary, fleeing prey from the air, they surround and rush the victim, pulling them down and devouring them. Otherwise, their master determines the strategy. Yeth Hounds consume warm-blooded creatures with a preference for humans, demi-humans, and fae. They themselves are avoided by all natural and several unnatural predators. While they require food to survive, they only need to eat once every lunar month. They typically live in packs of around 4 to 16 individuals. They often make their dens underground in the most isolated wilds. They can be encountered in Hades and any non-good plane such as Fury's Heart, Set's realm of Ankhwaghat, and the wild plains of Spirach in the Abyss. Formidable fae, like the Queen of Air and Darkness, and sinister forces from the lower planes often create Yeth Hound packs as rewards for loyal servants. Several metaphysicians theorize that Yeth Hounds are a manifestation of fear itself. They are known to establish telepathic connections with evil forces they deem worthy of being their masters, serving them as hunting hounds. They can share senses and communicate over great distances on the same plane. Additionally, they understand Common, Elvish, Infernal, and Sylvan, and they respond to language comprehension spells despite being unable to speak. Yeth Hounds often ally themselves with beings such as vampires, vile huntsmen, hags, wicked wizards, and other entities immune to their dreadful howling. They also serve powerful members of the Unseelie court. The death of a master simply prompts them to seek out a new malevolent force to serve. They are known to serve the drow deities of Kiran-Sali and Veyrun. They are also known to serve under Eshadau of Cholt, the destroyer of Talos, and Erdlin, the Craver below. A Nishruu, also called an Eater of Magic, is a large misty creature from another plane. Nishruus resemble red spheres that glow and pulse regularly. They are large creatures with mist-like forms. A more aggressive type is known as a Hakashar. As a gaseous mist, Nishruus can pass through narrow openings and small holes, and they take reduced damage due to their swirling form. They are silent and move towards the highest concentration of magic within an area they can sense. Powerful mages can summon them into the prime material plane. Eaters of magic do not use physical attacks and are unaffected by them. Standard attacks pass through them unless the weapons are magically enchanted. Nishruus, however, move fearlessly towards enchanted weapons, making them a threat to both those with and without access to magic or magical items. Other creatures can stand within the Nishru's misty form without taking damage unless they are attuned to magic. For spellcasters, they are particularly terrifying in battle. They absorb all incoming damaging spells. Fire and cold spells are exceptions. They deal damage, but are immediately dissipated. In addition to absorbing damaging spells, non-damaging spells heal Nishruus. Mind control and illusion spells have no effect on them. Even magical weapons are vulnerable, as they can drain multiple charges from them every few seconds. If an opponent is surrounded by Nishruus, they cannot use magic items like scrolls and potions. Magical artifacts also have no effect. Among known items, only a ring of spell turning or a rod of absorption has a chance of affecting them, but they only have a small chance of causing harm. Otherwise, they're negated like everything else. Spellcasters will lose one random prepared spell when inside the red globes of Nishruus. Every 6 seconds within the shroud, they'll lose another until they're entirely drained, and then they risk becoming feeble-minded. Adventurers carrying bags of salt can damage Nishruus by throwing handfuls at the crimson mist. This causes moderate poison damage if continuously applied. When slain, their bodies dissipate and recharge the surrounding magical items. They are solitary wanderers that cannot voluntarily transfer magical spells or charges to other beings. They feed exclusively on magic and drift endlessly in search of sources, whether from items or mages. There is no known limit to their energy absorption, and none have been known to starve from a lack of magic. It is believed they are also sustained by moisture and sunlight, similar to plants. Originating from some other plane, Nishruus came to Faerun in search of magical energies. They were first discovered on the Moonshae Isles, but have been found in other places with high magic activity. Thayan enclaves have historically struggled with their presence. In 1355, the Septenar of Simbar sent envoys to Cormyr, Sembia, and the Dale lands, seeking accounts of the assault on Scornabel by a Nishruu. He offered significant rewards to anyone who could send the Nishruu trapped under his home back to its plane without causing some catastrophe. On Ukhtar, in 1374, the twin brothers Tariq and Shaid al-Farid al-Fukani, young apprentices at Blackstaff Tower, used floating discs to destroy an invading Nishruu by dumping salt on the creature. Apep, known as Apophis, was a serpentine dragon demigod associated with fire and snakes. He was regarded by his adversaries as an embodiment of evil or chaotic evil. On the world of Toril, he was venerated by beast cults under the name Repra until his aspect was absorbed by the deity Seth. Both Apep's enemies and his followers claimed he had no purpose other than destruction, particularly targeting the pharaonic gods, their temples, clerics, and worshippers. He resided in the Abyss, confined to the wells of darkness by the pharaonic pantheon. Daily worshippers of this pantheon recited passages from the books of overthrowing Apep, a collection of true names, mutilation rituals, and power-draining incantations meant to keep his mind imprisoned. Apep commanded hordes of demons, many of which had fiery or serpentine traits. He was served by numerous flame snakes, a species of serpent related to him. His primary adversaries were the gods of the pharaonic pantheon, which later evolved into the Muhorandi pantheon. Apep once served the pharaonic god Set, battling the goddess Bast daily in an attempt to destroy the solar barge of Re. However, Set eventually joined forces with the other pharaonic gods against Apep. Among the pharaonic deities, his most formidable enemies were Osiris and Bast. The followers of Apep were typically deranged, corrupt, or inherently evil. Their worship was more cultic than structured, lacking holy symbols, priestly garments, and public gatherings. This secrecy was necessary to avoid the wrath of the pharaonic gods, who would punish those worshipping Apep. His followers believed his sole purpose was destruction, aiming to bring about the end of existence. Most of his devotees were humans and intelligent snakes, particularly under his aspect Repra. Some evil beings, especially serpentine ones like dragons, Nagas, and Yuan-Ti, served as his clerics, although Yuan-Ti worship of Apep also occurred on worlds beyond Toril. These clerics often flaunted their status among openly evil creatures, constructing elaborate temples in remote mountains or deserts adorned with numerous snakes and serpentine designs. In the domains of Dread, Apep was worshipped on the island of Terror, known as Sebua, under the alias Apophis. There is a manifestation of Apep which resided in a temple dedicated to him, guarding the heart of the domain's Dark Lord. Flame snakes, also known as fire snakes, are magical serpents linked to the element of fire and related to the great serpent Apep. They come in 3 subspecies: minor, lesser, and greater. All subspecies have bodies covered in red and orange scales, with black ones running along their backs in a pattern resembling ox. They emanate heat, making it appear as though heat waves are radiating off them at certain angles. Their eyes are dull and almost never blink. Minor flame snakes typically reach about half the size of a humanoid, while lesser flame snakes are double that size. Greater flame snakes have darker, mostly red scales and can grow massive in size. They have a fondness for collecting shiny objects, especially those made of gold. Minor flame snakes often forget the locations of their own hoards. Minor flame snakes are largely subservient to their larger counterparts and are frequently mistreated by the lesser variety. Lessers, known for their foul temper and viciousness, often vent their frustration from being abused by greater flame snakes on any creature they come across. Greater flame snakes are the most malicious, evil, and unpredictable of the three subspecies. They generate immense heat, making their touch akin to an open flame. The larger the snake, the more heat they produce, with the greater flame snake having a massive aura of heat around its body. All species are immune to fire and intense heat, and their fangs deliver a poison that burns victims from the inside. They are adept climbers, even when rushed or threatened. They can spit sticky gobs of magmatic spittle and have minor regenerative abilities. Greater flame snakes lack the spitting trait, but can breathe jets of flame in cones and have enhanced regenerative abilities. Upon death, a greater flame snake's body explodes in a fiery burst. In addition to their innate magical abilities, greater flame snakes can cast Fireball and Fire Shield, as well as Firestorm and Flame Strike. All species of flame snakes use similar tactics in combat, including constriction and their venomous fangs. Greater flame snakes are particularly known for using their flaming breath early and frequently in battles. When their breath attack is recharging, they attempt to swallow their foes whole. Generally, their most effective strategy is to stay close to their enemies and wear them down with their flaming aura. They spend much of their time coiled up, lounging in the warmth of their lairs. Minor flame snakes can be found either alone or in groups of 4 to 12. Lessers are found either alone, in pairs, or groups of around 4 to 7. Graders can be found alone, in pairs, or in groups of around 3 to 6. They are considered serpents by the scaled ones. Typically, they make their homes inside active or dormant volcanoes, near hot springs, or close to steam vents. Beyond the prime material plane and Set's domain, they are primarily found in the Muhorandi Pantheon's plane of Heliopolis. All species of flame snake can understand Ignan, although only greater flame snakes are capable of speaking it. They can also speak Infernal. They are often coerced or bribed into serving as guards for royal families. Due to their foul temper, lesser flame snakes are the least sought after for this role, while greater flame snakes are employed only by the wealthiest rulers. Among their own kind, greater flame snakes claim to have once been powerful fiends, banished from the 9 hells for some long-forgotten transgression. Many greater flame snakes seek to regain this supposedly lost power. The flora of Ankhwaghat is known to host palm trees, but the truly remarkable plant is the desert's night, an intoxicating flower blossom. This tiny red flower is highly valuable, as it is the only known remedy for the memory loss caused by the River Styx outside of powerful magic. The blossom can only grow in Ankhwaghat due to Set's strict supervision, and there's only one known garden where it can be cultivated, requiring a gardener with deep knowledge of the flower. The desert's night flower, despite its sedative nature, is deadly due to its poisonous properties. Those unable to withstand its effects will descend into a raging paranoia, culminating in a mindless berserker state after around 3 days. Conversely, those who inhale it or consume it as an herbal drink can experience a profound day of self-exploration, recovering memories, and healing from mental traumas. The internal conflicts among devil kind enabled Set to control a significant portion of Avernus, where his realm was first reported to be located. From a white stone palace there, he forced captives to build a massive pyramid, aiming to create an entirely new set of planes between the 9 hells and the more lawful plane of Acheron, an idea considered insane by most. Eventually, his realm was noted to exist in both Avernus and Stygia, with rumors suggesting he was receiving assistance from the devil Agares to extend his dominion to the lower layer of Mount Bolgi. Notable locations in his divine realm include Khas-Tep and Tukaman, significant settlements within Ankhwaghat. Each hosts a sizable urban population. Both settlements feature a small pyramid at their center, where petitioners, priests, and proxies gather daily to worship Set and draw power from him. These pyramids also serve as the sites where justice, though harsh and swift, is administered according to the letter of the law. The Lemur Pits is a muddy depression fed by a polluted spring, creating numerous wallows inhabited by thousands of lemurs. situated on the edge of a canyon 10 times larger than the greatest one on Toril. The pits overlook an outcropping of rock forming a bluff. The lemurs within are barely aware of anything occurring beyond their hole. Mount Hellspeak is a towering mountain of jagged red rocks in Ankhwaghat, larger than any mountain in Faerun. It is extremely steep and narrow, requiring weeks to climb directly. A single winding road wraps around it multiple times from the base to the summit. The Pit of Pestilence is situated on the side of a red block pyramid about half a day's walk from Mount Hellspeak. This pit exudes a foul stench that intensifies as one descends into its long passages. At the bottom lies a pit of corpses and bones, likely to cause disease to anyone lingering there. Several passages branch off from the pit, including one that leads directly to a temple of Set. At the heart of Ankhwaghat stands a massive black pyramid that reaches the highest point in the sky, casting a shadow across the land. This pyramid is visible from any location in the Divine Realm, with the sky streaks moving around it. Directions within the domain are given in relation to the pyramid. Toward the dark means moving closer to it, while into the shadow means moving away. Within a room at the base of the pyramid resides Set himself, who can see through the pyramid's walls to observe everything in his domain, including the interiors of structures and the minds of individuals. From this vantage point, he spies on his competition, gathers information to use against his enemies, sends forth his minions, and plots for dominion over the multiverse. The petitioners of this realm are believed to originate solely from Muhorandi backgrounds. They take on various forms based on the will of Set and the judgment of his lich-like chancellors upon their arrival. The most common form is that of ordinary humans, but the majority, deemed the most lacking, become dull-eyed slaves with a tormented, mummy-like appearance. These slaves are tasked with altering, constructing, and polishing the vast structures of the plane. Many of Ankhwaghat's human petitioners live and work in the fields, till the barren soil, and build fences to protect against the dangerous wildlife. Interestingly, Set may also transform his petitioners into animal forms such as crocodiles, hyenas, and scorpions. The most elite petitioners serve as skilled artisans, craftsmen, and functionaries. At times, groups of slaves are bound by Set to serve high-ranking devils in exchange for goods, favors, or magic. The petitioners of the Divine Realm are known for their untrustworthy nature, yet they uphold a peculiar sense of honor that prevents them from breaking a sworn word, although obtaining such a promise is challenging. These evil beings find it difficult to express gratitude, but do everything possible to settle their debts quickly, having observed enough infernal politics to foresee the deception of long-term repayment, even when none is intended. All petitioners, including the mummified ones, have the potential to be promoted by Set into his elite host of fiendish, jackal-headed warriors, or become divine minions. However, only the most ambitiously sinister attain the former, and very few have achieved the latter. Set takes pleasure in tormenting his petitioners with this possibility, motivating them to undercut their peers and work harder. Unless Set requires their services or they're being promoted, every petitioner remains in their assigned form. Ankhwaghat is also home to other evil entities, particularly those with a natural affinity for desert environments. Mummies are the most obvious and extreme example of this phenomenon. Both mummies and liches sometimes venture out of the realm to trade with the devils of Stygia's ruler, Levistus. According to some reports, any visitor unable to disguise their status as one of the living would be swarmed by these undead, along with Set's jackal-headed warriors. Night hags lurk in the uncivilized parts of Ankhwaghat, and Marashi are also present. Sebek, the Lord of Crocodiles and the lowest of the Muhorandi pantheon, has no realm in Heliopolis, and is known to reside in Set's realm when not on Toril. Sheyruushk is the divine realm of Sekolah, the patron god of the Sahuagin. In Sekola's realm, the horrors of the frigid ocean are unmatched. It is a place ruled by survival of the fittest, where endurance is valued and the weak are eliminated, reflected in the relentless ebb and flow of the waves. The salty sting of the sea embodies both victory and defeat. From the surface, Sheyruushk appears rather small, consisting of only a valley between two icebergs. However, beneath the surface, it expands significantly, with Sekola's true frigid, aquatic realm lying a great distance beneath the Stygian ice. The icy, nearly freezing waters of Sheyruushk are described as either bright blue or dark. Coral dots the sandy ocean floor, and currents sweep past sandbars with such force that they can pull the unwary deeper into the realm. The valley from which it is accessed is actually hidden just a short distance from the city of Tantlin. Sekolah is always looking to expand his realm, even if it means encroaching on an archdevil's territory. However, neither Geryon nor Levistus had much to fear from the shark god during their reigns, as great sheets of ice separate their domains. There is no physical route to Sheyruushk from the surface, so teleportation is required to reach it. The realm's existence contributes to the mystery surrounding the depths of Stygia. The presence of Sekolah's realm beneath the ice is enough to deter most from venturing into the area. Even Sekolah petitioners avoid straying too far from the realm's center due to the presence of larger, more dangerous creatures. In the deep oceans of Stygia, a variety of gigantic sea beasts, including squids, whales, and killer whales, serve as both predators and prey within their ecosystem, although Sekolah himself preys upon all of them. Sheyruushk doesn't hold much significance in the grand scheme of the cosmos. The River Styx has no influence on the realm, although outside its boundaries, the tainted waters behave normally. The Sekolah of the plain hunt and feed, but engage in minimal commerce with the rest of the 9 hells, occasionally taking people on squid hunts or providing additional muscle. Some speculate that the Batazu plan to use them in the aquatic layers of the abyss for the Blood War. There are no cities in his realm, but at its center lies the Coral Throne, Sekolah's seat of power. Here, he adopts Sekolah form and sits on his throne, reviewing his realm and responding to schools of petitioners seeking his guidance and blessing. His minions attend to the shark god as he silently and languidly floats through the waters of his divine realm. An eternal dance occurs around him during his presence, consisting of complex geometric movements following a strict choreography. The dancers are understandably nervous, as a single misstep means being swiftly devoured by their own patron. Usually, Sekolah is not at home, but he's out hunting for worthy prey. When his throne is vacant, he leaves a proxy to oversee the realm. The last known proxy was Sithasal, a king on Toril, and interestingly, a worshipper of Talos in life. For some reason, Sekolah had a prior claim to his soul and demanded it for himself, granting Sithasal his mortal memories so he could fully appreciate his status as a personal vassal of the shark deity. Sithasal rules effectively and fiercely in Sekolah's absence, fully aware of the unfortunate fate of his predecessor. However, Sekolah sometimes decides to take his vassal with him on his hunts. The Sekolah and sharks of the Divine Realm live in schools where only the strongest survive by preying on weaker groups. These schools often experience power struggles, with some displaying greater intelligence and recognizing the benefits of trade, though treachery always remains a possibility. Visitors are generally advised to avoid interactions with the petitioners and their schools. Petitioners of Sheyruushk appear unaffected by the negative aspects of Sekolah's home. The darkness does not bother them, and they are immune to its cold temperatures, even attacking anyone who complains about the cold for their perceived weakness. Sharks of every size and species constantly roam the waters of Sheyruushk. Along with barracudas, they are nearly as common as the realm's petitioners. It is also home to colossal sharks unlike any seen on the prime material plane, as they are not true animals, but extensions of Sekolah's power. These leviathans do not need to consume food, but may do so out of curiosity or viciousness. They possess unique magical properties, such as neutralizing the power of Styx water in their gullets and summoning several dozen Sekolah within themselves if they are attacked from the inside. However, they are intelligent enough to expel anything causing them significant harm before eviscerating it. Sekolah usually keeps his hunts to himself, but occasionally brings back prisoners for his subjects to hunt. Captured devils are often sacrificed in his realm and used in horrific rites to honor Sekolah. Other notable locations in Stygia include the Citadel Coldsteel, a vast fortress complex covertly designed and constructed by Geryon to capture a temple that, as Modius foretold, would magically appear beneath Stygia in hopes of regaining his power. The Citadel's diabolical architect built it almost entirely out of meticulously crafted steel, giving it an almost sterile appearance. However, due to its construction within an iceberg, it is extremely cold, even by infernal standards. The structure was designed to be hidden, with only the iceberg's tip visible above the surface and all entrances located underwater. Despite this, reports after Geryon's defeat and reclamation of the Citadel described it as rising from the ice at the center of Stygia. When one nears the structure, howling winds and screams fill the air, preventing many from sleeping properly. Shimmering portals also appear in the vicinity, seemingly leading to safe places, only to transport individuals to other parts of Stygia. The Duelist Chasm is a jagged fissure in a vast iceberg, carved to house a circular ground slick with a permanent red slush formed from the previous fighter's semi-frozen gore. The paying audience sits within boxes cut into the fissure's sides, accessed by the frayed rope ladders and attended by Barbazu gambling masters, who take bets and shout odds to their Amnesu bosses on the chasm's edge. This location is one of the few places where devils can engage in combat with each other outside of significant rank disparities. After filing the necessary paperwork and waiting 4 to 6 weeks for processing, applicants receive a license of lawful combat. This permission is unnecessary for fighting non-devils, even if they're invited into the chasm. Beyond settling disputes, chasm combat offers opportunities for fame, glory, and profit. The Hall of the Vanquished is a museum and training ground composed of a series of interconnected display rooms carved into the Stygian ice. Within these rooms are the mightiest foes defeated by Levistan cultists, including famous heroes, archons, demons, chaos beasts, and other common Batezu adversaries. These figures are bound through the Bind to Hell spell, diverted from their proper afterlife, and stand frozen, dramatically posed on pedestals. Information plaques carved in unquenchable fire on slabs of ice describe each subject's capabilities, legendary deeds, and strategies for combating similar entities. Devils and cultists can apply to temporarily thaw specimens for training purposes. Occasionally, the friends of captured mortals stage raids and sometimes succeed in freeing specimens despite all traps and guards. However, escape is only possible once outside the hall. Otherwise, the subject simply returns to their pedestal with a new tortured expression. The Pillar of Geryon is a crude, humanoid-shaped block of granite lodged in a slow-moving glacier. This forgotten monument to Stygia's former ruler grinds slowly through the layer, though it never comes near Levistus' tomb. The pillar features a simplistic, cave painting-like outline of Geryon, with deep depressions where the right hand and head should be. Eroded steps protrude from the base, allowing access to those areas. Placing one's left hand in the depression results in wrist amputation, but the wrist slowly regenerates into a gnarled, rubbery, olive-green, slightly larger new hand covered in pulsing scar tissue. This new hand gradually finds weaknesses in enemy armor and is effective against the forces of chaos and good. After 99 days, acts of law or evil are required to renew its powers. Despite legends to the contrary, sacrificing one head results only in decapitation. Levistus is the lord of Stygia, and possibly the most despised of the archdevils in all the 9 hells. This self-proclaimed prince is infamous for his treachery and is imprisoned in an ancient iceberg often referred to as his tomb. His true appearance is largely unknown. From outside of his glacial prison, he is only visible as a small black dot within a mountain of dark ice. The ice is also transparently blue enough that observers can see his frustrated posture from any angle. On close inspection, Levistus appears to be a tall humanoid male with dark hair, a neat goatee, and an extremely pale complexion. He could pass for a human if not for his traditionally fiendish traits, his pointed teeth, and his coal black eyes that practically radiate darkness. In the days of his freedom, he wore loose, silken clothing and carried a shining rapier. Now he dons fanciful garments and other finery when meeting mortals in a projected form. When appearing as an aspect, the air around him is chilling, and his clothes are always partially frozen and dripping with water. Unable to move his body in his frozen state, Levistus' brooding mind remains fully aware of his surroundings and has become incredibly perceptive due to his prolonged confinement. With few distractions, he can concentrate fully on maintaining and controlling his vast network of agents, meticulously masterminding his plans in Stygia and beyond. Even before his imprisonment, Levistus had proven himself clever, charming, and capable, earning him control over Stygia in the first place. He relished his graceful agility and desires above all to be free from his humiliating and ironic immobility. Levistus almost always challenges his enemies to one-on-one duels to the death, not only because he typically has the advantage, but also due to his sense of honor and fair play. Yet despite the Archdevil's peculiar chivalry, he is also notoriously treacherous, known as a traitorous, yet dashing debonair. His rebelliousness is one of his greatest flaws, as he can hardly restrain himself from double-crossing others, even to his own detriment. While imprisoned, his schemes have become more gradually paced and broader in scope, but his inherent nature as a rakish rogue drives him to hasten his plans. Further impeding him is his typical devilish megalomania, exacerbated by his blinding hatred and need for revenge after being trapped. He is a swashbuckling swordsman of legendary skill, using a combination of precise moves, acrobatic maneuvers, and elaborate parrying to defeat his opponents. He deflects not only sword swings, but also spells back at his foes. Typically, he fights defensively, using his combat expertise to ward off attacks when facing a worthy opponent, and retreating when in real danger. Like his Styx Devil servitors, he can use his touch to drain the memories of others, leaving them stunned for a few seconds and erasing their knowledge of the past while preserving their skills. He often taunts those who lose their memories with vague hints of their former selves rather than killing them. A greater restoration spell can undo the effect, and those with strong willpower will only lose memories of the past year. Levistus is resistant to the cold and can manipulate it through spells like Wall of Ice or Ice Storm. His other magical abilities allow him to enthrall and command others and create symbols of pain. He can summon Gelugons and Pit Fiends, but only calls for assistance when his duels are interfered with. In such cases, he creates an ice storm to distance himself from his foes and walls of ice to cut his enemies off from each other, summoning devils when the opportunity arises. These characteristics also apply to his aspects. While motionless in the ice, he relies on his other spell-like abilities, such as clairvoyance, mirror image, scrying, unholy aura, and wish, as well as summoned aid, which can appear anywhere he can see through scrying or clairvoyance. His favored weapons are his enchanted rapier and main gouge, with the former being imprisoned along with him. If he were to escape, he would likely seek more powerful blades. The Tomb of Levistus is massive in scope, with the Archdevil imprisoned at its center. It has been seen near or in the harbor of the city of Tantlan, but otherwise drifts aimlessly through the freezing ocean of Stygia. Occasionally, it gets stuck between larger icebergs at the outer reaches of the plain for years at a time, and sometimes passes in and out of the River Styx. Levistus is incapable of controlling the iceberg's direction despite his regular attempts, such as ordering his underlings to attach sails and rudders. It is said that when the currents cause it to drift in an undesirable path, the light laughter of Asmodeus can be heard. Erinyes fly in patrols to keep the tomb safe from above, while ice devils on ice-flow rafts protect it from below, although the Gelugons are known to accept bribes from visitors wishing to see the Prince of Stygia. The enchanted ice encasing Levistus is incredibly powerful and ancient, even by Batezu standards. The snow and sleet of Stygia freeze over most attempts to break through it twice as fast as the devils can mine. Its resistance to magic thwarts any attempts to summon or teleport Levistus out, and even wish and miracle magic are known to have no effect. Only persistent destruction of the ice, or melting it with fire, whether magical or otherwise, can permanently alter its shape. However, any attempts to free Levistus specifically result in the ice almost immediately regenerating. There is a magical method by which souls sacrificed to Levistus empower him and melt the ice, but only good-aligned beings of fire can cause any significant change to his situation. Only Asmodeus seems capable of freeing Levistus from his tomb, and does so once a year so that Levistus can attend meetings of the Archdevils in Nessus. Despite this, other areas of the iceberg can be hollowed out and have been converted into labyrinthine arrays of corridors, chambers, and vaults filled with ice devil militia and wary guard posts. The tunnels wind upwards, and the prison becomes more akin to a fearsome palace of ice the higher one goes, though most intruders are caught before seeing it. The various properties of the ice allow the guardians to easily spy on trespassers, seeing perfectly for long distances in some clearer areas, and using hairline cracks in certain fissures to listen to distorted sounds from afar. Perhaps the biggest threat of the tomb is its sheer cold, which preserves the corpses of intruders perfectly and uses wicked magic to keep mortals alive. Imprisonment in such areas, known as the Halls of Frozen Memory, is a punishment for heroic trespassers, their would-be rescuers, and disloyal or traitorous devil servants. Those trapped within the tomb are as sentient as Levistus, but have likely gone mad, filling the area with insane, inescapable telepathic screams and nonsense. The rare intelligent soul cannot converse with others for too long, as the stillness of a new soul causes entrapment. Souls are delivered through docks anchored to the outside of the tomb and suffer a similar fate once pressed inside through monitored ramps. Forced to keep moving throughout the halls or risk becoming frozen, many are already known to have gone mad. Devils throughout the Nine Hells occasionally plot to steal from Levistus's vaults of wealth and souls beneath the waterline. The scheme the Frozen Prince encourages as it nets him even more souls. None have been known to succeed in stealing from his vaults, and devils trapped within must escape or be hunted by non-devil teams and sentenced to a fate worse than death. Guests deemed worthy of invitation to the palace's suites are met with masterfully crafted decorations and furniture of crystal and ice. Accommodations are piercingly cold to keep the Archdevil's presence in the minds of those around him, and luxurious to remind visitors of his status and wealth, offering food and warmth to the chilled visitors. The succubi servants of Levistus report any important information they discover. After scaling a spiral staircase, Levistus can be found within the peak of an iceberg inside a towering rampart, leaving anyone trying to speak with him exposed to the Stygian winds. The frozen prince can be seen across a perilous gulf, with flying devils spiraling overhead, accompanied by an ancient white dragon. Having had centuries to devise new plans, Levistus set several intricate schemes into motion after being restored to power. Through barely legal contracts and indebting favors, he manipulated diplomats and informants as skillfully as he did assassins and soul harvesters. Leveraging his reputation for creating servants to two masters, he sowed intrigue and distrust among the rival archdevils. He plotted to overtake nearby regions of hell, believing that by stealing territory from his rivals, he could gain the power he needed to escape his prison. Although typically too busy to manifest an avatar, Levistus uses aspects of himself to influence the world. These aspects prefer the icy oceans of Stygia, but mainly handle affairs on other planes since Levistus's trapped state makes them uncomfortable. Increasing his presence in Faerun is just one of their many interplanar tasks. Levistus realized that even with military might, he couldn't take over other circles of the Nine Hells, while the other archdevils had equal support from the pit fiends. Lacking direct control over his domain, he had to use unorthodox methods to influence it. Amnesus, his trusted courtiers, chancellors, and sycophants received special treatment from him. By convincing them that they were above the laws of Beator and outside the Betezu hierarchy, he inflated their egos and earned their undying loyalty. He uses the Amnesus to carry out schemes against his peers, causing them to undermine and be suspicious of their pit fiends. He has even gone so far as to sabotage the Dark Eight. Levistus eventually decided to target Asmodeus himself, aiming to destroy the Lord of Nessus from within by attacking his most trusted servitors. However, after Geryon's return, Levistus was forced into conflict with the wild beast, turning Stygia into a war zone. While Yugoloths and spare soldiers not sent to fight in the Blood War engaged in minor skirmishes, Levistus's servants occasionally seek out adventurers, hoping they can uncover knowledge capable of permanently freeing their master or tipping the balance. Of all the archdevils, Levistus is likely the most despised by his peers, with whom he shares mutual enmity. He is ridiculed and reviled, not just because of his poor standing with Asmodeus, which makes him reluctant to associate with him, but also due to his constant attempts to elevate himself at the expense of others, and his refusal to play by the established rules of Beator. Their combined disdain for the Frozen Prince prevents him from succeeding in his plans, as they unite to thwart his schemes, even those who would never normally consider alliances. His pursuit of freedom further ostracizes him, as each archdevil believes that if he were to escape, he would likely betray the Nine Hells to opposing forces. This is especially true for Asmodeus, whom Levistus harbors a special hatred for due to his imprisonment and lack of gratitude for his restored dominion. The Lord of the Six, Glacia, holds a personal grudge against him for his ancient betrayal regarding her mother Bensosia. Levistus plots to seduce the rebellious princess of Hell. Belial, Lord of the Fourth, is troubled by Levistus's reappearance, as he has proven to be a worthy opponent capable of decimating his armies. At one point, Belial planned to march his armies into Stygia, confident that he could take Malbolgia from Malagard afterwards, but the introduction of Glacia forced him to reconsider his plans. His daughter Fierna has no interest in taking the frozen wasteland from Levistus, and thanks to Glacia, has begun to take an active role in managing Phlegethos, which has forced Belial to put his plots against Levistus on hold. Levistus faces his own rivals within Stygia, primarily his arch-nemesis Geryon. The two have battled over Stygia for centuries, with Levistus's imprisonment occurring just after he retook it. With Levistus immobile and Geryon unable to directly attack him, they are forced to battle indirectly for control of the lair. Levistus also contends with the brutal Sekola and the deceptive Set, both of whom desire complete control over his domain. Sekolah constantly seeks to expand his divine realm, even if it means attacking Levistus, convinced he could tear him apart without the iceberg in the way. Levistus and Set have nearly come to outright war despite their mutual subtlety. Their goals are incompatible and they work to undermine each other. Levistus uses his mortal agents to destroy Set's temples, while Set's divine minions cause mayhem in Levistus's cities and trouble his Amnesu. Levistus does not have many dukes, having absorbed what was left of Geryon's old court. He managed to appoint Michalis and Agares as commanders, but Michalis is the weakest of the old administration he has integrated. and Agares, seeking greater power, appears to assist Set in order to depose Levistus. The Lord of Stygia also has other aides, like the Gelligon sorcerer Eridon Alaka, who is constantly telepathically linked to Levistus via an arcane ritual, and Xanth, a half-fiend rogue. Both act on Levistus's behalf, but Xanth is influenced by Mephistopheles, who often sends lesser devils to bribe him into subtly serving his own goals. Despite his immobility, Levistus is able to meet his soul quotas, partly because he has little else to occupy his time. Unlike most archdevils, who target large populations to maximize corruption, Levistus focuses on shunned outcasts, allowing him to gather souls without drawing the attention of their society or his peers. The other archdevils are unsure of how many souls he has collected. Ironically, the sheer number of forgotten individuals enables Levistus to meet his quota despite their lack of cohesion, with the added benefit of their variety. Levistus is the patron of the traitorous and vengeful, those who commit acts so heinous in their quest for retribution that their misdeeds are recorded in bardic tales for generations. His followers, known as the Blade Reavers, do not match the image of sinister cultists, solemn priests, or zealous fanatics. Instead, they wield rapiers and wear flamboyant outfits more commonly seen on daring swashbucklers. Even if not for their appearance, Blade Reavers are rarely actual cultists, as they prefer solitude and hardly speak. Because his base of worshippers is composed of rogues and ruffians, his followers lack cooperative skills and often betray each other. Mutual mistrust among his followers is why permanent shrines to him are rare. Instead, they favor individual, portable shrines, allowing each to worship in their own way. Levistan cultists are often nomads, and those who aren't typically live on the fringes of society only to obtain supplies. When possible, they dwell far from civilization, spending months or years in isolation before returning. His followers are obsessed with their revenge, sometimes to the point of psychosis, spending their isolation stoking their rage and meticulously crafting their plans. By appealing to their bitterness and promising a chance to exact retribution, Levistus acquires the service of released rebels, hated inmates, and exiled political rivals. Subtlety and long-term plans for vengeance or to subsume authority are encouraged until the schemer, who might once have been of decent moral character, becomes utterly wicked. The most independent and least stable followers make their plans in abandoned ruins, sacrificing anyone who stumbles across them, except in the rare circumstance when they encounter a kindred spirit. When two or more loathsome loners bond, fueling each other's spite and hate, one of the rare cults of Levistus can appear. This can also occur when an organization, typically a thieves' guild or pirate crew, but sometimes legal authorities like a merchant house or city watch, has a previously persecuted member, now devoted to Levistus, take power and encourage others to join in his ways. Levistus is also a patron of survival, as Asmodeus decreed that part of his punishment requires him to offer those in life-threatening danger a chance to escape. Like ordinary Blade Reavers, such followers are not actual cultists, but individuals trapped in a seemingly inescapable situation, such as a drow pushed to their breaking point by a cruel society. Typically, he grants would-be escapees a single chance to flee in exchange for their souls, though sometimes these followers make a deal for a future escape. Once the deal is made, the follower is teleported to somewhere within a mile of their previous location, completely healed of their wounds, either by choosing to activate the boon or as a response to their imminent demise. Vengeful scoundrels are not Levistus's only servants. Some of his followers act as bounty hunters, offering fugitives a choice between serving Levistus and facing the law. Only the promise of another soul in place of their own can prevent a Levistan bounty hunter from killing their quarry if they are wanted dead or alive. Those already in positions of power, but disliked or isolated by the circumstances of their command, such as prison wardens or strict sergeants, are also vulnerable to him and his temptations of cold, lawful order. During rituals to Levistus, ice is melted inside iron cauldrons filled with boiling water to symbolize his desired release. His disciples are commanded to search for items and information valuable to devils serving other lords, so Levistus can bring them into his spy network. Powerful Levistan cultists have access to a spell called Bind to Hell, allowing them to send the souls of mortals and bodies of outsiders to Hell, specifically to the museum prison, the Hall of the Vanquished. Initially, Levistan worshippers are told to sacrifice the souls of others without giving up their own, and they are presented with items that symbolize their loyalty to Levistus and bind the souls of those they kill. To obtain their ultimate reward, both the object and the souls must be taken on a perilous quest to Stygia, while Levistus attempts to break their spirit until they pledge their own soul as well. Other cultists are forced to assist in trying to chip the ice around Levistus' tomb. Levistus rewards his worshippers with powers that allow them to harness the Stygian cold to freeze their enemies. Some folktales claim that those pledged to Levistus are never warmed and have icy handshakes. Levistan warlocks have special abilities enabling them to seal themselves within ice temporarily to avoid harm. His servants can draw upon his power to imprison their enemies in ice and manipulate ice with ease. Warlocks and other infernal scholars, hoping that Levistus' condition would make him more easily persuaded into giving up lore, encounter a self-pitying and seemingly desperate persona. The Lord of Stygia sends his pawns on increasingly dangerous missions and to risk their lives and corrupt their souls. Once they are no longer useful, they are killed like all the others. Levistus occasionally meets with those seeking a personal audience with him, but only after they are judged worthy by his highest-ranking devils. Suitable gifts must be brought before him, including vast amounts of wealth, valuable secrets about his rivals, a mass of insignificant individual souls, or a soul of singular importance. Rarely is only one of these considered enough. Petitioners are forced to formally and respectfully present themselves and may be kept waiting for years before Levistus finally converses with them. Despite being able to telepathically communicate from outside his iceberg, Levistus values only their offers and not the presenters. He openly exploits his invulnerability in negotiations, laughing at threats and sending devils to kill or imprison anyone who insults him. However, he is willing to hear out, if not accept, offers from anyone. He can provide information about other layers of hell, exile dukes and archdukes, or aid in plots to liberate other souls from hell, provided that the individuals he bargains with seem powerful enough to cause disruption. However, he is just as likely to provide misinformation to turn his co-conspirators into distractions, and often attempts to corrupt them at every step. He is an ancient archdevil, possibly older than Dispater, though this is debated by supporters of the Iron Duke. The rogue archdevil was among the first to challenge Asmodeus, seeking greater power soon after gaining control of Stygia. Contrary to popular belief, the crime that led to Levistus' imprisonment was much more heinous than merely betraying Asmodeus, making his punishment appear lenient. According to the tale, Asmodeus' consort, Bensosia, was inspecting Stygia when Levistus ambushed her. The details of the ambush vary. Some say he approached her peacefully, while others claim he killed all of her pit fiend bodyguards except one, Asmodeus' constable, Martinet. Levistus either proposed making Bensosia his queen to help him overthrow her husband, or attempted to assault her. When she refused, Levistus murdered her, and if her guards were still alive, he killed them as well. This tale circulated throughout the Nine Hells, but was likely propaganda to conceal Levistus' actual crime and the involvement of another party. It was believed that Bensosia despised Asmodeus, and if she declined such an offer, it was for reasons other than loyalty. An alternate version of the story portrays Bensosia and Levistus as co-conspirators, using each other as lovers and tools to undermine Asmodeus. However, their arrangement was threatened when Glacia became infatuated with Levistus during one of his visits to Nessus. Seizing an opportunity to further destabilize Asmodeus' household, he began a secret affair with Asmodeus' daughter. Levistus understood that Glacia's immaturity would lead to violent jealousy if she learned the truth, and that Bensosia would be equally enraged by his deceit, but he maintained the ruse. Eventually, after another quarrel with her father, Glacia sought refuge with Levistus, only to find Bensosia with him, igniting her hatred for her mother into a murderous rage. Glacia supposedly killed her mother, sneaking into her palanquin and slitting her throat. Martinet, tasked with maintaining Asmodeus' rule, framed Levistus for the murder to preserve his reputation and killed the pit fiends to eliminate any witnesses. If the alternative story were true, Asmodeus' decision to imprison Levistus was not driven by a fiery vengeance for his murdered consort, but rather a calculated, rational move to set a precedent. Glacia's hatred for Levistus would also be fundamentally different, not the righteous fury of a grieving daughter, but the heartbreak and anger of a betrayed lover. She was said to be obsessively focused on Levistus, oscillating between rage and longing, though some believed her anger was just a facade. Even before his imprisonment, Levistus tried to forge alliances with those on the fringes of the Nine Hells, especially those outside Asmodeus' control. As a result, his influence extended beyond the Nine Hells. The Frozen Prince's agents sought out Yugoloths, ambitious pit fiends, struggling dukes of hell, and other outcasts to strike deals with the Archdevil. While most Archdevils were uninterested in his schemes involving the seemingly insignificant outer regions of the Nine Hells, Levistus appealed to lesser dukes, aiming to regain their former status. This gave him access to valuable spies within their courts. He even provided false information to Asmodeus's double agents, leading them to fall out of favor with the Dark Lord and into his own hands. After being reinstated to his former position, Levistus began amassing a vast quantity of souls in his prison, while the devils under his command suffered from a shortage. He would sometimes offer these souls as rewards to those willing to betray their masters. His agents seduced mortals who were already being tempted by other devils' soul harvesters and then bribed them with souls. The pride of most devils prevented them from allowing their marks to suffer at the hands of others, which Levistus exploits for his strategy. Although his hoarding has led him to be labeled a miser, bribery isn't his sole aim. His true plan is so audacious that most of his rivals would likely dismiss it as implausible if they discovered it, to starve his enemies into submission. Much of Levistus's network operates in the outer regions of hell above Avernus, known as the Outer Torments. When ready, pirates trained by Levistus's specially selected agents and kept isolated from one another would block the influx of souls through Avernus. As the servants of other archdevils grew hungrier and more desperate, Levistus would use his amassed souls to tighten his grip over the other layers of hell. He anticipated that the Dark Eight, some of whom he had pacts with, would turn on Bel due to his failure to prevent the disaster. With the aid of lesser archdevils like Moloch and Azazel, Avernus would descend into chaos. This would render Avernus ineffective in supplying souls, allowing Levistus's forces to converge on those between the 1st and 5th layers, leaving the rulers of the 6th and 9th layers feeling trapped in their own domains until he finally moved against them. However, this scheme was eventually abandoned in favor of a quicker approach against Asmodeus before Geryon arrived, forcing Levistus to contend with his old rival. There is a rumor that anyone who frees him from his icy prison will gain complete control over him. Asmodeus's apparent indifference to Levistus's actions, including his constant disrespect and open hostility towards his peers, puzzles infernal nobles throughout the hells. Despite Levistus's role in attempting to seduce and playing a part in the death of Ben-Sozia, he was reinstated to power, replacing the loyal Geryon. A theory emerged suggesting that Levistus was merely a convenient pawn. When Asmodeus displaced Geryon, it was believed that the energy taken from him was not transferred to the imprisoned Levistus, but saved for Glacia's ascension. Levistus's provocations were tolerated because they served as a distraction from this larger plan. Levistus had come to accept this theory, although he despised its implications, that he had been completely outmaneuvered and that his schemes were used as a cover for a grander plot. This realization has forced him to reconsider his future actions. Even his ongoing conflict with Geryon is thought by some sages to be another test, designed either to force the two archdevils to overcome their weaknesses, or if they failed, to create conditions for a more capable lord to emerge. Contlin, known as the City of Ice, is the largest city in Stygia, situated on the most expansive and central of its enormous icebergs. The city's name is fitting, as every street and structure is formed using ice. In the middle of the harbor floats the iceberg prison of the ruling archdevil Levistus when it is not drifting uncontrollably across Stygia. Like the smaller settlements of Stygia, Contlin is built atop an ice floe. Every structure and street on the city is either carved directly from ice, including the iceberg it sits upon, or created by pouring water into molds and freezing it. The city is arranged in concentric circles, and its translucent, serrated spires rise high into Stygia's twilight sky. The Stygian swamp curves around Contlin, covering slightly less than half the length of its walls. The surrounding mountains host major quarries where granite, basalt, marble, and chalk are mined. Contlin's social structure follows a strict hierarchy reflected in its physical layout. Abatezu's neighborhood in the City of Ice depends on its influence within the power structure. The closer to the center Abatezu resides, the higher their status. The inner areas are reserved for the most powerful devils, while extraplanar visitors and the lowest infernal beings are confined to the outermost ring. Entering a quadrant beyond one station is punishable by immediate execution. Throughout its known history, Contlin has been a significant hub of trade. During Geryon's reign, nearby quarries provided structural stone to the other 9 hells. The city was well stocked, furnished, and filled with centuries' worth of baubles and treasures either seized or gifted to Geryon. These treasures acquired during his pillaging expeditions against wealthy and dangerous foes included statues, idols, furniture, and gaudy ornaments like giant gemstones rather than small exquisite ones. Even after Levistus took power, and during the city's more chaotic periods, Contlin remained a key trade post where commerce and intrigue flourished. The city received many of the souls brought to Stygia by Levistus' fleet. However, the primary industry for devils in Totland under Levistus' control became paperwork. The scriveners of Totland transcribed various books, contracts, magic scrolls, and other documents, taking assignments from across the 9 hells. While most of these are countless mundane reports, diligent searching through the calligraphy workshops might reveal a scrap of information useful to a particular investigator. Totland holds significant importance beyond the context of the 9 hells. The sea surrounding the city contains many drifting, icy, well-guarded portals linking the Styx to the prime material plane. Despite constant gang violence, merchants and caravans travel to and from Totland with goods from other lower planes. Even mummies and liches occasionally travel from Ankhwaghat to engage in commerce with Levistus' devils, and though the Sahuagin of Sekolah's divine realm did little commerce, they were known to take non-Sahuagin on squid hunts or provide extra muscle to the devils when they need it. Due to these factors, Totland became a major cross-planar trading hub, second only to Dis in receiving traffic from non-devils. However, many of these non-devils were tolerated only if a powerful devil, such as a pit fiend or war devil, guaranteed their safe passage, and most are forbidden from entering the deeper circles of the City of Ice. Stygia offers little shelter beyond Totland, and even the City of Ice does not protect extraplanar travelers from the layer's cold. During Geryon's rule, the city was described as having high stone walls. Ironically, its newer concentric structure makes it somewhat vulnerable to attack, as raiders could plow through the outer burrows and retreat upon encountering sufficient resistance. The devils of Stygia are resistant to the cold, making the city and other areas in Stygia comfortable environments for them. Despite this, due to one of Levistus' longer-running schemes, the streets of Totland were once again filled with sluggish and emaciated devils desperate to consume a single soul. Totland houses the greatest concentration of Amnesu in the 9 hells. The lowliest of lemurs and the most bitter of Nuparibos are exiled to the outskirts of the city. During Geryon's reign, Totland was best described as his enormous fortress. He rarely left, finding pleasure in fighting and hunting lesser devils and intruders in his vast, maze-like corridors or gravel-filled mines nearby. While Geryon was hunting, his magistrate Herodias took charge of the city's defenses. After Asmodeus overthrew Geryon and Levistus came to power, Totland descended into chaos under the leadership of a pit fiend who seized control of the City of Ice. Though her name was unknown, she was feared, as her presence often spelled doom for the unfortunate. She governed the city like a twisted social experiment, with her only rule being that the strong should survive. She was a violent devil who managed the city erratically, rarely leaving her citadel except for random executions. Her unpredictable outbursts were kept in check by Levistus, who kept her occupied. Due to this pit fiend's inconsistent leadership, Totland was overrun by various gangs of Batezu and other evil entities from across the plains. These groups frequently fought for control, trying to impose their own laws at each other's expense. Each gang controlled a part of the city, aiming to expand their territory, but avoid causing harm to those crucial to the city's functioning, such as traders or repair petitioners, to avoid provoking the pit fiend's wrath. Totland became so violent that the dupes from the previous regime, who resided in feasts outside the city, were encouraged to prove themselves by fighting for dominance in the City of Ice under the pit fiend's watchful eye. This resulted in the death, disappearance, or exile of most of them, with the streets in chaos, the rulers of Stygia perishing, and the pit fiend behaving like a mad queen. A change in Totland was inevitable. The disorder was so widespread that Levistus' rivals began to question his adherence to lawful principles. Before external criticism reached a peak, Levistus reasserted his authority by rewarding the survivors of this period with positions and promotions. His amnesu factotums dealt with the one responsible for the city's chaos by freezing the unnamed pit fiend where she stood and shattering her into 1,000,000 pieces. Her fragments became prized collectibles in Stygia, worn as pendants to bestow strength and endurance, although they would quickly thaw into rotting devil flesh when exposed to above freezing temperatures. Following this, Totland's social structure stabilized into its more modern form. Mercenaries from various planes play a crucial role in the war for control of Stygia, including the Yugoloths. Among them, the Morenoloths stand out, as neither devils of higher status nor lower rank dare to touch them or their passengers unless off their skiff, whether in Stygia or most other layers. While Ocelus might attempt it, the Morenoloths are the finest boatmen of the River Styx. Their skill allows them to bring anyone they choose into Stygia effectively, and they do not hesitate to ferry armies as long as it is not involved in the blood war. The Styx serve as the route for those picked up on the shelves of Despond, the clammy rocks of Avernus, where damned souls first appear in hell. Then they are taken to Stygia. They are swiftly transported on barges, usually to the city of Tanthlin or to Levistus' tomb. The process of docking near an iceberg is challenging due to the ice bars jutting from beneath the waterline, and the mournful dead are unloaded and tirelessly herded by ice devils. The souls of the damned appear physically present in Stygia. Those who gaze out over the ice can sometimes see tormented, screaming souls writhing within it like tombstones. Levistus' influence can even raise sobbing white faces from the shifting ice blocks. Besides these souls, there are other petitioners to manage. Many trade cities along the Styx are populated by planers. A few tribes of frost giants also inhabit the lair. Despite the scarcity of true prey besides lemurs, the Stygian swamp hosts a thriving ecosystem of frosty, fiendish, and unexpected beasts on both the icy land and the frigid sea. The Stygian wilderness is home to creatures such as mammoths, frostworms, and remorhazes, which compete for food with polar bears and dire wolves. Stygia also boasts a notable population of supernatural canines. Hellhounds can sometimes serve as prey, and winter wolves roam the area. These creatures ultimately answer to Geryon's Duke Aemon, who tamed the largest of them, Soulfang, establishing himself at the top of their hierarchy. The ecology beneath the ice pack is equally intriguing, though heavily altered by the presence of Sekolah. The great white shark god devoured all potential rivals long ago, eliminating sharks and killer whales from the sea, except for those under his control. Sekolah's servants, including Sahuagin, sharks, megalodons, and colossal sharks, unlike anything on the material plane, are immune to the Styx due to their god's blessing, making them dangerous even there. These colossal sharks, extensions of Sekolah's power, consume more out of curiosity and viciousness than a need for meat. The Stygian Sea teems with beasts both large and small, from predatory giant octopuses and squids to prey such as great whales and many smaller blind fish. However, despite Sekolah's influence, a more alien presence exists in the dark depths of the Stygian Ocean, with krakens being a notable example. An even more formidable threat is the presence of aboleths in the Stygian Sea, creatures altered by the influence of the Nine Hells. Infused with the frozen malevolent magic of Stygia, they have evolved into a completely new species and might eventually become a new kind of devil. Stygian aboleths rule over nations of aquatic Batazu and enslave beings from various realms and maintain cities in the remote corners of the plain. Most native denizens of Stygia are cautious to stay close to the ground unless they are immune to electricity or agile flyers capable of dodging the plane's frequent lightning blasts, such as some of its devils. Stygia is a peculiar plane with origin shrouded in mystery, and some speculate it was not always part of the Nine Hells. Rumors suggest that it was originally a world on the prime material plane facing certain doom, whose inhabitants pledged their souls and the world itself to Asmodeus in exchange for safety, resulting in the world's transportation to the Nine Hells. This hypothesis is based on the unusual variety of creatures native to the material plane that inhabit the layer, although no definitive evidence has ever been found to support it, at least according to the Archmage Zunk. However, this theory bears striking resemblance to a verifiable event from eons past, where a large city of exceptionally large aboleths used their magic to transport an entire world full of minions from the material plane into Stygia, where the aberrations thrived. Regardless of the overarching truth of the story, speculation that artifacts from the original world rest at the bottom of the Stygian Sea remains untested. Sekolah's presence beneath the water's surface alone is enough to deter most exploration. Even devils are not exempt from the predations of the shark god or his minions, with their sharks particularly relishing the chance to sink merchant craft and the boatmen of the Styx alike. The devils tend to avoid speculating in detail about what beings live below the surface. As far as can be determined, Stygia was originally ruled by the archdevil Levistus. Levistus is said to be older than Despater, and Despater himself is so unimaginably old that his origins are difficult to recall, and classifying him as a type of devil is challenging. Levistus proved his abilities and cunning when the Batazu first conquered Beator, and his charm and competence led to his installation as Stygia's Lord of the Nine. For eons, Levistus ruled Stygia, earning a reputation across the plains as a legendary swordsman who resolved many conflicts through lethal duels. During this time, Geryon, believed to have been an ally of Asmodeus from before the Batazu devils came into existence, was also present. Though a powerful archdevil, Geryon did not rule a plane of his own. Instead, he served as Asmodeus' personal agent, acting as his herald, spy, saboteur, and advisor in the Hells. He participated in the pillaging expeditions when summoned to the material planes by mortals, where he amassed great wealth. Yet Levistus, as powerful as he was not satisfied with his position. Known as the rogue archdevil, he was treacherous even by the standards of devilkind. He was among the first fiends to attempt to overthrow Asmodeus, harboring ambitions beyond his realm and plotting to achieve them shortly after being granted his position. There is some debate about whether Levistus had been deposed before in ancient times, possibly more than once. Accounts vary on whether he and Geryon fought over Stygia before Levistus was frozen or not. In any case, Asmodeus has been known to demote archdevils, but Levistus's notorious offense was deemed so severe that his mere imprisonment could be seen as an act of mercy. The rule of Geryon, as described by the sources, seemed to span both before and after the murder of Ben-Sozia. In ironic contrast to the ambitious Levistus, Geryon initially resented his increased authority and longed for his former freedom. However, he gradually grew to enjoy his position, becoming more cruel and malicious as he took pleasure in tormenting his inferiors and engaging in infernal politics. Reports on the duration of his rule vary, but it is generally described as lasting for centuries, if not millennia, while Levistus was imprisoned. During his dominion, Geryon ruled from Totlin, best described as his castle, and rarely left it. He took great pleasure in luring powerful creatures from beyond the Hells to Stygia with carefully crafted tales of magic, knowledge, or treasure, intending to make them prey in his unsporting hunts. Geryon delighted in physically battling lesser devils and captured intruders, sometimes chasing them for extended periods through the halls of Totlin. These hunts occasionally led out into the nearby gravel-strewn quarries where Spinagons, Amatula, hunt survivors, and similar subjects perpetually mined stone blocks for the walls of Totlin and other places of hell. During this period, Geryon was perhaps the most content among all the archdevils, showing the least interest in the endless political struggles typical of his kind, or at least doing so as a means to constantly pursue power. He never missed an opportunity to act against his rivals, but he did so out of his own sense of pleasure. Despite being relatively weak among the archdevils during his long tenure, he did not significantly distinguish himself from his peers, nor was he seriously threatened or troubled. His vassals appeared loyal outwardly and were frequently called upon to support his interests. Geryon's chief lieutenant, Aemon, who by this time extensively explored Stygia and had tamed its winter wolves, commanded 40 companies of bone devils and often clashed with Agares, who led 31 similar companies. Machalas, after overseeing 11 companies of barbed devils, subtly encouraged conflict among the other generals to position himself as more dependable, while a pit fiend named Fakor commanded 8 companies of Cornigons. Geryon also retained the services of Alaces, known as the Prince of Beasts, for several years. This fiend specialized in creating monstrous horrors and managed a menagerie, serving as a kennel master, hunt master, head breeder, and creature creator. During this time, Geryon's sovereign interests were protected by his magistrate Herodias and his bailiff Gorson, overseen by his consort Cosby, who despite her quiet demeanor, was vigilant and not easily deceived. Herodias maintained security within the realm, taking charge of defenses during Geryon's hunts and training and organizing Geryon's legions of bone devils. Meanwhile, Gorson monitored daily affairs and internal politics across the Hells, directing and coordinating the Amnesu in Geryon's absence. Thus, they wielded significant power in Stygia in Geryon's name, allowing him to pursue his hunts while maintaining and possibly increasing his influence. During this era, Amnesu did not hold the prominent position in Stygia that they would later. They resided in the swamp, tormenting lemurs as they wallowed in the muck unless summoned for specific missions. Occasionally, bone devils or horn devils would venture into the swamp, either to join in the torment or to provoke skirmishes with the Styx devils, prompting all present to unite in driving out the intruders. During this period, significant events unfolded in Stygia, including a scheme by Balzabul, ruler of both Maladomini and Malbolgi, to manipulate mortals into removing a gem known as the Devil Bane from Stygia. This maneuver prompted forces from Geryon and Asmodeus himself to attempt seizing the gem from its protected location within a warded holy tower. A counterattack ensued from celestial forces led by Tyr and Osiris. Meanwhile, Set was in the midst of constructing his pyramid in Stygia, driven by ambitions beyond his dominion in Avernus. His ambitious plan aimed to establish a stronghold in the frozen wastes, ultimately intending to make it his primary plane. Sekola was already a presence during this time, known for conversing with and occasionally consuming Geryon's ambassadors, though the Archduke himself showed little fear of the sea deity. However, Geryon's stable rule began to erode. his influence waned, and Alices abandoned him, opting for a more mercenary approach to his services. Despite this, Geryon played a crucial role as Asmodeus' agent during the Reckoning of Hell. Though officially aligned with the faction of the Cold Lord Mephistopheles, Geryon secretly supported Asmodeus against the schemes of his rivals. In fact, Geryon actively encouraged treachery, engaging in clandestine relations with Malagard, the night hag consort of his rival ruler and the sixth layer of Moloch. He persuaded her to join the fray, promising her a path to ascendancy amidst the chaos to rule the Hells. Geryon continued to feed Asmodeus information on the conspirators' activities right up to the final encounter. During the climactic event, it was Geryon's great horn, symbolizing his authority during his rule, that signaled the Pit Fiend commanders to turn on their archdevil masters. Surrounded by Asmodeus' armies and facing betrayal from within, the archdevils were left in humiliating disarray. Despite the chaos, Moloch refused to retreat, emboldened by the manipulations of Malagard at Geryon's behest. For his defiance, Moloch was one of the few lords officially and decisively removed from power at the end of the Reckoning. Geryon actually found himself in the same category. Despite his loyalty, he was stripped of his rulership and a significant portion of his power before being banished. To the shock of many in Beator, Geryon's replacement turned out to be none other than the treacherous Levistus himself. Levistus had languished in his icy prison for millennia, conscious but powerless to act. During Geryon's reign, he observed and plotted patiently, formulating a grand scheme born of his immense patience. When Asmodeus unexpectedly reinstated him, Levistus neither displayed gratitude nor outward surprise. Instead, he seemed ready to reclaim his title and authority immediately, though fully aware that some kind of trap awaited him. Indeed, he remained under punishment, awakened but still bound in immobility, now tasked with offering escape and safety to desperate souls. Levistus' agents moved swiftly to eliminate most of Geryon's generals and to prevent any potential threats from the old regime. This purge resulted in the deaths of many of Geryon's loyal followers during the battles that ensued after his downfall and during their exile. Within Todlin, the notorious Pit Fiend who seized control after Geryon's ousting encouraged and escalated the internal conflicts within the city. Among the remnants of Geryon's loyalists, only Aemon survived unscathed. Outraged by Geryon's punishment and believing that he deserved reward instead, Aemon remained in the Hells to seek vengeance in his former lord's name. With Agares and Malphas cautiously aligning with him, Levistus began to enact his long-awaited revenge. Rivals who underestimate Levistus' capabilities often pay dearly for their miscalculations. For instance, Belial, expecting a swift conquest of the lower Hells after Levistus' appointment, instead suffered significant losses when his forces were decimated in Stygia. He then turned his efforts towards politically maneuvering against Levistus. Set, now firmly established in Stygia, engages in a shadowy conflict with Levistus, each undermining the other through subtle machinations. Despite his imprisonment, Levistus' subtle schemes unfolded slowly but relentlessly, aided by his undivided focus and attention. From his icy tomb, he has managed to answer pleas from distant worlds, orchestrate intricate intrigues against his rivals, and maintain a complex network of espionage and diplomacy that few can match. His plans are meticulously detailed, encompassing both Stygia and beyond. Some on the material plane mistakenly believe that Levistus has little interest in politics, but among planar beings it is widely known otherwise. Levistus is constantly scheming to seize power from his rivals, and harbors ambitions to conquer an adjacent layer of hell, possibly the sixth, in a bid to secure his freedom. His relentless pursuit of power has earned him a reputation for greed, leading to rumors in Stygia of an imminent assault for which his amnesia were recruiting mercenaries. Such bold moves, made at the expense of his peers, have further isolated Levistus from any lords who still deal with him outside of Asmodeus' favor. Shortly after his ascension and continued imprisonment, Levistus began hoarding souls within his icy prison. His loyalists rationed soul consumption to the brink of starvation, a practice they extended across Stygia, turning the fifth layer into a realm of desperate and ravenous devils. Souls were traded for acts of betrayal or exchanged for desired souls from other devils, enriching his ever-growing vault. All of this was a mere preparation for the climax of his scheme. His grand plan is to transform Stygia into the second barrier of a strategic blockade around the Middle Hells. Even before his imprisonment, he had established alliances with figures beyond Asmodeus' direct control, including exiled archdevils and forsaken creatures of the Hells. These allies lead splinter cells of pirates and saboteurs within his extensive network. When his preparations are complete, Levistus intends to unleash his motley crew of infernal outcasts to disrupt the flow of souls into the Hells, starting from Avernus. With additional support from bribes to influential figures like Moloch and the Dark Eight, he plans a siege that would gradually advance through the upper layers, forcing his enemies into submission. Levistus's devils, accustomed to soul deprivation, would thrive while their adversaries suffered, trapped in their own domains. The poetic irony of the scheme lay in the fact that even Asmodeus and his rivals would experience the torment of confinement within their realms. Geryon's fate following his loss of rulership was shrouded in uncertainty. Reports suggested various outcomes, from banishment and destruction to a final battle for control before he disappeared into obscurity within Stygia. However, one of his last notable appearances before his eventual resurgence revealed the profound depths of Asmodeus' schemes. It is speculated that Asmodeus, anticipating Levistus' ambitions on another layer, summoned the contemplative Geryon to his fortress of Malshim. There, he offered to support Geryon's reinstatement on the condition that he serve in his grand plan. Centuries earlier, Asmodeus had foreseen the inevitable threat posed by Levistus and allowed events to unfold until the rogue archdevil no longer served his purpose. Concurrently, Asmodeus set in motion a plan to remove Levistus with Geryon's aid. To fully secure Asmodeus' backing, Geryon needed only to conquer the Temple of Neohead, a crucial step in Asmodeus' agenda for a sweeping corruption event that would involve Stygia. Aware in advance of Neohead's impending arrival, Geryon strategically planned and constructed Fortress Coldsteel, completing its construction in secrecy and gathering his forces there. Despite Geryon's precautions, Levistus was informed about Coldsteel and had his amnesia monitor its activities closely, even subtly encouraging adventurers to go investigate it. Amid the ensuing turmoil, Geryon's consort Cosby, sustained artificially beyond her natural lifespan, finally succumbed to death. Despite Geryon's efforts, the invasion seemed to be thwarted, and his authority remained unrestored, leaving the deposed archdevil to languish once more as Asmodeus' plans were foiled. Meanwhile, Levistus faced growing unrest in Tauntlan, where the rule of the nameless pit fiend had descended the city into chaos marked by frequent gang fights and rampant criminal influence. As doubts about his ability to maintain order grew among his rivals, Levistus was compelled to take decisive action. Levistus faced new challenges with the rise of Glacia following the demise of Malagard, who briefly ruled Malbolgi after Moloch. It is rumored that Geryon thwarted his plans for godhood. Glacia's unexpected ascension has puzzled Hell's historians, leading to a theory that aims to explain these intricate maneuvers orchestrated by Asmodeus. According to this theory, elevating Levistus to rule Stygia while keeping him in prison allows Asmodeus to conserve the energy meant for Geryon's replacement, thus reserving it to bolster Glacia's position. Malagard's temporary rule was seen as a transitional phase until Asmodeus' daughter was prepared to assume the throne. Under this interpretation, Levistus' provocative actions were perceived as a deliberate distraction from Asmodeus' larger plan for his offspring. If accurate, this implies that Asmodeus' machinations are a level above even the archdevil's, suggesting that even Levistus' own schemes serve as components of Asmodeus' grand design. Despite his disdain for the theory's implications, Levistus reluctantly acknowledges its plausibility, conceding that his ambitions might have unwittingly served Asmodeus' greater agenda. With Glacia's ascent and her avowed animosity towards him, Levistus has faced a renewed urge to betray. Despite the perceived safety of his imprisonment, her threats do little to sway him, knowing her current inability to penetrate his invulnerable state and her lack of forces to launch a full-scale assault on Stygia. However, Glacia's alliance with Fierna, the ruler of Phlegethos, raises eyebrows. Unlike her father Belial, Fierna has displayed no interest in the frigid realms of Stygia, which fuels speculation about her potential designs on mastering cold magic, as that would imply she wants to assert dominance over Stygia or Cania. It is plausible that Glacia aims to bolster her forces through Fierna's support in a future attack on Stygia, leveraging their unusual friendship and Fierna's innate cold immunity before Glacia's rule of Malbolgi. These developments have spurred Levistus to expedite his plans to disrupt Hell's power structure once more. He contemplated subverting Asmodeus' court and even rekindling his dangerous liaison with Asmodeus' rebellious daughter, despite knowing the risks involved. When Geryon finally vanished from infernal history, he had lost all hope for the future and began to question his own existence. Asmodeus, who craved the souls of those with shattered faith, feasted upon his, reducing him to little more than a vestige. Geryon wandered aimlessly through the astral plane, consumed by despair. Many believed he had perished or merged with the astral energies of other planes. In truth, he felt drawn to Tetherion, the endless night, where he joined other exiles, isolated and brooding in his cave. It dawned on him that Asmodeus must have a purpose for him, one that even the King of Hell cannot openly acknowledge. Whatever his deliberations' ultimate cause or outcome, Geryon eventually returned to Stygia, determined to reclaim his lost status and still harboring a bitterness over Asmodeus' rejection. He seized Citadel Coldsteel, strategically close to the plane's center much like Totlin, and plots to wrest control of Stygia from Levistus. Unable to directly confront each other, the two archdevils have turned Stygia into a battleground, with each side vying for supremacy. Sages speculate that even this conflict is orchestrated by Asmodeus, a trial intended to purge his minions' worst tendencies and possibly pave the way for a new leader to rise and rule Stygia in their stead. Stygia is a realm defined by its harshness and perpetual state of conflict. It is a place where survival is not just a matter of endurance, but of wits and strategy. The frozen wastes of Stygia, with their treacherous seas and towering icebergs, manifest the icy, relentless, and unforgiving nature of the lower 9 hells. The rivalry between Levistus and Geryon is more than just a battle for control. It is a clash of ideologies and ambitions. Levistus, with his suave yet treacherous nature, constantly schemes to expand his influence, while Geryon utilizes brute strength and raw power, seeking to reclaim his lost dominion. This enduring struggle has shaped all aspects of life in Stygia, influencing the politics, alliances, and daily existence of its denizens. Stygia is geographically and politically the center of the 9 hells, a layer in which many of the schemes of the powerful archdevils are focused, which may tip the very balance of the multiverse. Even Asmodeus himself has taken an interest in this polluted ocean of icebergs and frozen swamps. For those willing to venture deep into the polluted oceans, the treasures of lost gods and civilizations lay at the bottom of the icy waters. As the chilling winds howl and the lightning flashes across the dark skies of Stygia, the conflict between the two archdevils continues to escalate, the outcome of which will have profound effects for both Beator and the Forgotten Realms.
Riding through the Styx on a lone icebreaker boat. If I die down here, the devils they would gloat. Ha ha ha, the water's awfully cold. Dead gods with tentacles. The sharks look pretty hungry and their king's a jerk untold. Oh Stygia, Stygia, we're only halfway down. I thought it'd be hot over here, but now I just might drown. Oh Stygia, Stygia, that frozen icy waste. But hey, it's got a nice museum, so why not see the place? Now I'm in the sand. The mummies look real mad. This place is really weird. Giant scorpions are bad. Sting, sting, sting. Icecube man rules here from his frozen tomb. I'm worried that if he gets out, he'll bring about our doom. Oh Stygia, Stygia, we're only halfway down. I thought it'd be hot over here, but now I just might drown. Oh Stygia, Stygia, that frozen icy waste. But hey, it's got a nice museum, so why not see the place?